Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The British prospect Hosea Stewart has escaped with a draw against Franklin Ignatius. This was a 4-round fight on a Channel 5 card that was headlined by Josh Kelly. And why I say he was lucky to get it, I think many people who watched that fight probably scored it 3-1 to Ignatius, and 2-2 is a viable score, but there's no case in my view that he won that fight. But I think a draw, not unfair, but I did edge it to Ignatius 3-1. This was a fight where ahead of it, in fight week, Franklin Ignatius, so he was 4-0 coming into this one, relatively unheralded, he managed to get under Hosea Stewart's skin. And that played out in the fight a little bit. So in the press conference, he talked about gassing Hosea Stewart out, remembering Hosea Stewart for his pro debut a couple of months ago, 345 pounds. He's come down a bit since then, still way too heavy, 325 pounds. Here's a shot from the weigh-in. But that weight did play a factor, and Ignatius was able to get under Stewart's skin, say that he was going to make him work and gas him out and take him out. And I think we had some of Stewart's reaction playing out in that first round, because if you've seen his first couple of fights in the pro ranks, likes to fight at a certain pace, doesn't push himself too much, but it was different in this one. The first round was actually relatively hectic, a decent pace, but that caught up with Hosea Stewart in the other rounds. First round, clearly a Stewart round. He was able to get the best of the action, especially when it was at range, using his jab, throwing it from the hip and finding the target a lot. But from round 2, for the rest of the fight, this was a 4-rounder, you had Franklin Ignatius making some adjustments. Instead of being on the outside and getting sort of pot-shotted, he was making his way to the inside, and largely he wasn't made to pay when he stepped in, but he was getting the best of the action. He was able to get away a lot of good body work, whereas Hosea Stewart, through his sheer bulk, just seemed a little bit awkward and cumbersome on the inside, wasn't able to get a lot of clean, effective punches away. Whereas you had Ignatius, who'd be in there close and then able to step back and rip in some body shots. But this was a case, this fight, especially rounds 2 to 4, a lot of holding. And arguably, you could have, if the referee had wanted to be a bit more on this, he could have potentially won the fighters. But it was a case that both were initiating clinches. For Hosea Stewart, his was more of a tie him up, try to lean on Ignatius and try to just impose himself physically. Whereas for Ignatius, it would be come in, work some body shots, tie up, or there would be basically both these guys silent agreement, agreeing to sort of tie up, and then it would be broken up by the referee eventually. But round 4, which is probably a close round to score, I did give to Ignatius, and heading into that 4th round, I had it 2-1. And you could, if you heard this, and go back to the Boxing Social YouTube channel, where the Wasserman card, which was on Channel 5, some of the undercard fights, including this one, Stewart versus Ignatius, after the fight, you could hear the commentators, clearly someone hadn't turned out their mic, both of them, Dave Caldwell and Andy Clark, you could hear them saying they gave it 3-1 to Ignatius. So I think Hosea Stewart, lucky to get away with a draw here. I don't think it's an unfair result, but I do think that Franklin Ignatius, if I had to pick a winner, it was certainly him. He was able to adjust, whereas Hosea Stewart basically burned himself out to some degree after that first round, which he won, and ultimately wasn't able to, even though he was the guy bringing some pressure and physicality, he wasn't getting a lot of clean, effective scoring punches in for the rest of the fight. So I think he can count himself lucky to be 2-2. And you have to ask the question, why did they match him this tough at this stage? Remembering he's not a highly sort of touted prospect. I guess he's maybe a middling type of prospect coming out of the UK. Is it factors related to his out of condition, out of the ring, where he's obviously had his first fight a few months ago and his second fight, both over 340 pounds? Are they sort of signaling to him, you need to actually put in performances and show us that you're worthy of our signature here at Wasserman? Because I think so far he has disappointed to some degree. And I don't think the weight helps. I think he can be much more effective at a lower weight. 300 or less. I mean, I think he has to go for that. He's not a huge guy in terms of height. He's, what is he, 6'4" and 325 pounds. And I think that is having an effect on the way that he fights. Had he been under 300 or at least another 20 pounds less, I think he could have been more effective on the inside. But then again, also a prospect, maybe he's just not that developed on the inside. But this was, on the face of it, a very evenly matched fight. And I think Hosea Stewart did not shine. So besides the weight factor, which is a red flag, obviously at this point, if they're pitching him against unheralded 4-0 guys like Ignatius, you have to ask what they think his ceiling is. And that's certainly a question. But it was a good fight, well matched. I enjoyed it. A little bit too much holding. Maybe the referee could have been tougher on that. But Hosea Stewart, 2-0-1, and Ignatius now 4-0-1. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch. If you caught this, what do you make of it all? Then what do you think Stewart needs to do? I think this 325 pounds is hampering him. He is nimble and mobile and relatively sort of athletic for a guy his size still. But there's something not working here, and I think he's not able to, especially when it's sort of mid-range to inside, be effective. From the outside, shooting that jab up from the hip, he looks good. He was landing a few shots from outside, but apart from that, very, lackluster overall. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.